Hey everyone, there's a new update out right now for Age of Mythology Retold. They're calling it the October update. It is titled Update 17.36100 for whatever reason. There's a lot of changes in here. It looks to be like some of the patch notes from the previous patch are in here. I'm not sure if that's intentional or not, but nonetheless, this is largely a stability and performance patch. There are some meta changes that we'll get into here. Of course, the patch notes will be in the video description. And let's go ahead and dive into everything that's changing for Age of Mythology Retold. So starting off in the patch, they're going to be talking about the stability and performance, and that's really the bulk of what's going on here. I think there's still some people that are complaining about games going out of sync, games crashing, issues with forming lobbies, particularly custom game lobbies, as well as how the flow goes from entering a game and exiting a game. And they are addressing a lot of this here. So it's really kind of in-depth here, but they're talking about crashes that would be fixed on Intel GPUs, fixes for crashes that would occur. It just says on some GPUs. It doesn't specifically say which ones. Fix for out-of-sync errors for various things, including like when the Wonder Age affected a formation, kind of really edge cases, I think. Fix an out-of-sync issue that would occur when multiple players experience a connection interruption simultaneously in a short period. And I think this is the one that we see the most common. This actually happened, it looks to be like this is what happened in one of our multiplayer games where we were effectively losing a 3v3 and then two of the other people lagged out, and I think we still lost the 1v3 because we got obliterated so bad. It was a hilarious game, but nonetheless, I think them fixing the stability of this game is huge. I really think that that's really what's the most annoying that I've seen in the comments, at least for me, from players, is they really got to fix these crashes and out of sync, and they're continuing to focus on that in these patches, so that's good news. They're also fixing things for localization in other languages, as well as achievements. They say achievements are unlocking before the intended criteria was met, so they're fixing some of that, which is good. Graphics. There's actually one that I really like. They're adding a Z visual effect above idle villagers. So really what that means is like intended like your villagers sleeping. You see this in other Age of Empires games. And I think that's a great visual indicator where if you're not paying attention to the idle villager button at the top right panel of your screen, you might visually see that that villager's standing still, not doing anything. And actually in this patch, there's quite a lot of fixes for villagers. Later on, you'll see in the meta that villagers can now attack move, which was something that was so aggravating to a lot of players, including myself, because I think there's even a relic that increases like the attack of villagers, and you had to like manually attack with your villagers. So now that they can A move, it's really, really good. The dragon for the Norse, the range indicator now properly displays a more accurate path, which is great. Minor visual updates to some units, and then they're fixed a flickering that would occur when on the summoning tree unit. I think that there are some, at least from what I've seen in the circle of players that I talked to, some of them are complaining that there is some flickering going on that I'm not sure if this is what will fix it or not. I've not experienced any screen flickering. Actually, where I experience it is when I play Halo the Master Chief Collection on Steam, getting in and out of games. Never experienced it here in AOM Retold. If you have, I guess post it in the comments so I can get a little bit more information on that. UI, there's quite a lot of UI changes in here. You can kind of look into these to see if there's any of these that really are pertain to you. I don't really want to go too deep into these because I think a lot of this is, again, edge cases, things that you wouldn't really see a whole heck of a lot, so I don't want to spend too much time here. I think the more important one is the Browse Games lobby is getting a lot of updates. You can now search by the game ID and the game ID URL and player names, and I don't know if you know this, but a lot of the games will have an ID that you can actually copy. And so now that you can, in fact, search by that, I think is really huge. Maybe if a friend sends you one, or, there's one posted on a Discord for you to join, I think that makes it much more easy for you to join in and out of games by using that. They also say that there's improvements to the multiplayer browse screen. The list is now a more complete collection of available games. This screen will no longer prevent you from selecting games when some items in the list have been populated. The improvements to the filter functionality, and old games that are stale or no longer active or no longer joinable, they're much less likely to appear in your search as well. This one they kind of buried in the list, and I can't believe that this wasn't like the thing at the top. And this is the one I'm most excited for, and I complained about this since launch. 4v4 ranked and quick play is now available for queuing for automated matchmaking. That's huge. I am surprised that that wasn't in there at launch. This is really something that is TeamRespawn's bread and butter for Age of Empires. It's me, Hosty, Jimbo, and Gus. And I was just surprised. And actually, for quite a while, for the first few weeks, we were kind of sad that we always had to have an odd man out and someone spectate a game or something when we would play. And you notice on our streams, we've not had the full crew there either. So 4v4 ranked and quick play is where I'm going to be playing for years and years and years. It's really the only playlist that I'll be playing in. I'm really glad it's here. I don't know if it was a performance issue or not. And really excited for this. So if you have a group of 4 that you want to search in ranked or quick play, go ahead and do so. It's here, and I'm really happy that it is here. Another small one is right-clicking the minor god portraits will now pre-queue the age up. To my understanding, I could already do this. You see me do it in every video. I almost always pre-queue the tech up by right-clicking on the portrait and doing that. So I don't know if that's like maybe on Xbox when you're using a mouse. It doesn't really specify. Maybe I'm misunderstanding exactly what's being fixed here. But if you're having that issue, you're no longer having that issue based on this patch here. There's a few more things to kind of look into. Again, I'm not going to go too deep into this. I don't want to waste your time. We're moving over into hotkeys. So if you control double click on Atlantean citizens, you'll no longer select units that are not performing the same action type, which I think is good. This one's huge, and I was surprised that this wasn't here until now. Units currently empowering a building are now excluded from selecting all heroes or military units hotkeys. So if you're playing as Egyptians and you're using your pharaoh or one of your priests to empower your building, all the time, if you were to select all heroes, all military, whatever you've one of those hotkeys, you would pull those units away from those buildings that are being empowered. And I tried like manually babysitting my pharaoh to like go back and empower my town center, whatever the case is. And it got too much micro for my comfort. I was like, you know what, just forget it. I'm doing all military so often. I'm just going to pull the pharaoh and we're going to kind of live with it. Now it's going to be excluded. I'm sure, I think there is a hotkey where you can manually select the pharaoh for Egyptians anyway. So if you still want to select the pharaoh, you can either add them to a control group with your military or select all your military, and then the hotkey for the pharaoh is probably the workaround if you still want to select your pharaoh when you're not looking at him. There are a ton of fixes here for controller and Xbox. Most notably, the easy military drag select is now an option on Xbox. I actually don't like that. If I'm understanding that correctly, that's for like, if you want to, you like click and drag over a big group of units and it like excludes the villagers is the way that I'm interpreting that, if I'm remembering that correctly. If I'm not, let me know in the comments. It was really more hassle than what it was worth, because I would just, filter out the villagers by sending them to go work somewhere else. But nonetheless, that's here for Xbox. A lot of changes to how you can move in the minimap mode. And I think that's where like you can actually enlarge the minimap and navigate your controller in there. A lot of fixes to that. It still doesn't say here that there's fixes for relics on controller for Xbox. I'm going to need to go in and actually test that. I don't want to, give you misinformation, but to my understanding, when you're using a controller and on Xbox, it's always been the case up until this patch where you can't see the description of a relic unless you have line of sight of that relic. Not through the fog of war like on PC. On PC, if you just find the relic through fog of war, you can no longer have line of sight, and you just look through the fog of war, and it will tell you the description of that relic. On Xbox, that's not the case. You actually have to send a unit right next to the relic to see the description of it in order to figure out if you want to pick it up or not. So what I usually do is discover all the relics, on my side of the map, and then I'll pick, 2 or 3 that I want to go for. On Xbox, you can't do that on a controller. You have to decide right then and there if that's what you want, or try to remember which relic has which description. It's very confusing, and I hope that they fix that. I hope that's fixed in this build, but we'll have to verify and hope that changes. There are some gameplay fixes and changes. This one I think is really good. There's fixes for AI behavior on drop sites. Villagers will be properly tasked onto nearby dead herdables after building on a drop site. There's still some aggravating things that villagers do, most notably like you tell a group of villagers to chop one tree. Like let's say you take 10 villagers, you right click on one tree. It's really hit or miss if they're all going to go after one tree or properly split up between multiple trees, which is what I think they should do. And this is kind of true for other resources as well, like maybe berries and sometimes herdables, but trees and villagers I think are the most aggravating thing in this game. And so I hope that they eventually address that, because sometimes you'll get a villager stuck and it can't, it's stuck because other villagers are chopping on the tree and they won't move out of the way. I don't know, it's kind of aggravating. But I'm glad that they're making a change here for the drop-off for herdables. As I stated earlier, villagers can now attack move. That's huge. I think that that's important. Villagers are now treated as idle if they can't build a building they have been tasked to help with. So sometimes you can tell your villager to build somewhere, and maybe like there's a military unit standing over there. I've noticed the villagers, like the military unit either won't move out of the way, and the building foundation's still there, and the villager's just standing there, not doing anything, and it doesn't show up as idle. And so you're really just wasting this villager's idle time, and it's not showing up for you. And you have no idea unless you figure it out on your own. So I'm glad that that's there, and maybe that should fix that sort of conflict in the future. They're fixing how there could be bugs when sending units in and out of sky passages for Atlanteans. I know that was a problem for a lot of players, so I'm glad that that's being fixed. The implode no longer pulls in herdables. I could have swore that was in the last patch, and maybe it was. Again, this is where sometimes I feel like the notes from the last patch are kind of in this one. Placing a town center on a settlement foundation in the fog of war will now refund the player if another player has already built on it when revealed. I think actually you had to either manually cancel it and get your money back, or you just didn't get your money back at all. But I think the former is true and not the latter there. But I'm glad that they're doing that. I think that that is huge. The rock, so that's like that flying bird thing that can transport units. I think that's Egyptian. You can now land on empty farms. Apparently that was impossible. For campaigns, they're talking about that there are balance changes, various fixes, and polishes for almost every Fall of the Trident campaign mission, a few of the new Atlantis missions as well. I think it's kind of really in depth here, so if you want to look at that, you can. It doesn't really get actually too specific on what the minor polish or balance changes are, but nonetheless, if you want to see what mission got what change, you can certainly look at the patch notes. There's not a whole lot of things done to the balance, but we're going to get into it quickly here. For buildings, Fortress-type building hack armor has been increased a little bit. Champion Cavalry research time has doubled from 20 seconds to 40 seconds. Guard tower damage has been increased, and the Architect's building hit points has been increased as well. So what it seems like to me is maybe they're thinking that Cav is a little bit too good in Age 4, and maybe against buildings. I'm not sure if the two are related, but they want to make buildings a little bit better, which I actually think I appreciate, because I do think it's a little bit too easy to, like, I call it dive bombing a TC, where you just send all of your units to a town center. It looks like that's a little bit too easy, in my opinion. We're moving on now to changes to the various pantheons. They're starting with Greek. For most of the heroes, for the starting heroes for Hades, it may not be the starting, maybe your Age 2 one, Achilles and Atalanta for Poseidon, your movement speed has been reduced. There's a few changes to technologies and myth units for the Greeks. Is it the Carcinos? I may be pronouncing that incorrectly. That's the Mythic Age unit for the Greeks. They're increasing the hit points, the speed, the damage on death, and the damage increase as well. I really think what this is showing is too many people are going the Colossus potentially in Age 4. I'm not sure if that's entirely true or not. Sometimes they give you notes on why they're changing things, but maybe that's the reason why. I actually rarely don't see Colossus in Age 4 with Greeks. Almost everyone goes that, at least the people I go up against. They're also increasing the rate of fire for archers, so that means that it's going to attack slower. That's by 10%. Moving on to the Egyptian pantheon, starting with Ra, the skin of the rhino technology, the research time's been cut in half. For the meteor strike god power, the crush damage has been reduced by quite a lot, 750 to 580. And here's some notes that they put. Town centers can take an additional meteor strike before being destroyed, and a second one if the Masons has been researched. So maybe too often people are like dropping that right on a TC, and it's like an insta-kill in the TC. I think the meteor god power is insane, but usually all the Age 4 ones kind of are. So maybe that's why they did that change. The Locust Swarm god power, the divine damage has been increased as well from 0.3 to 0.4. It says inattentive villagers watch out. So maybe that can kind of get more villies faster than you would like. For myth units, they're changing and reducing the cost of the war turtle and increasing the hit points as well. And then the minions ancestors god power, let's see, the bonus damage has been reduced for heroes, and the movement speed has been reduced as well. I think that power is quite good. Human units, for the mercenary, they're changing some things. Looks like they're getting buffed a little bit. The train time's been reduced. Their hit points has been increased. Their damage versus cav has been increased, and their hack damage has been increased as well. And same as going with the mercenary cav, the hack damage is going up, the bonus damage is going up, and the train time is being reduced. So they want you to use more mercenary units as Egyptians. Norse, Gus says that this is complete BS. The town center is no longer minus 10 wood cost and minus 10 hit points. The stats are now the same as the other cultures for Norse. Take that how you will. I actually think that's a good thing. Gus says it's BS. I'll let you be the judge in the comments. Going on to Loki, the major god bonus for Loki, infantry building build speed has been reduced from 25% all the way down to 10. They're not too happy about that. For Freyr, is that the Gullimbursty? I think that's the boar. Correct me if I'm wrong. It no longer inflicts friendly fire with its basic attack. I actually think that friendly fire in RTS games is like an interesting dynamic that should be retained. Like, I know the tornado for the Egyptians invokes friendly fire. I'm not sure if the meteor strike does. I know the lightning strike does not. But I think that that's good. I think that really makes you think twice, like, hey, is it really worth me dropping this or not? I think that that's important. Moving on to the Atlanteans for the minor gods, they are actually fixing Poseidon's secret. So there was a bug where it was like the bug for Poseidon's secret was a 30% change instead of it was supposed to be 15%. So they are they're getting rid of that. I know that they said that was like one of the most high priority things, and for me in videos I've been exploiting that because I think it's hilarious, and a lot of other players were as well. So you would see people go Atlanteans and then just spam Cav because Poseidon's secret was just so good. And I think that's only for Gaia and Oranos or Oranos. It's not for Kronos. For the Tartarian Gate, this is one of my favorite god powers in the entire game. The hack, they're actually buffing it. The hack armor is being increased. The pierce armor is being increased. The Tartarian spawns wander and they chase enemy units further. And the maximum number of spawns are increasing from 6 to 7. I think that god power is really good. Everyone goes the implosion, which is a great power too, and that's actually getting buffed here as well. But the Tartarian Gate, I mean, shout out to it. We won a game by dropping that on their trade, and it just obliterated their trade, and they couldn't recover. So it's really, really good. Anyway, moving on to the implosion, the escape radius has been increased. It sucks in units even faster, and it reveals line of sight to all players. I think that's interesting, the line of sight to all players. Lastly, the Chaos God power, the minimum duration has been reduced. The maximum duration has been reduced. And the repeat cost has been increased as well. I guess people are using that too often, I think is kind of what that's saying. And then lastly, the automatons, the train time has been reduced from 12 seconds to 10 seconds. There's some changes going on to the Highland map in 1v1s. They're making some more crossings for you. And they're talking about some changes to scenario editors with mods. And remember, they said in a previous patch that visual mods are now allowed in ranked. So I think there's one that like puts the UI on the bottom left, like how other Age games do. So you could use that in ranked if you want. Nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, 20 minutes later, that is the update for 17.36100. A lot of good changes here. There's actually really nothing that really bugs me here. They made a few, like the cross-play opt-out thing I was not a fan of. It should be input-based, not platform-based. That's neither here nor there. But I'm really glad to see these kinds of changes being implemented. I think this is a really good patch, and the game's just continuing to get better as time goes on. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and if this is your first time on the channel, we're posting Age of Mythology content daily here on the channel, so be sure to check that out, and Age of Mythology content is going to keep on going for quite some time. That's going to do it for me. Thank you all so much for watching, everybody, and I'll see you, James.